And although he was an example of generosity, he would spend very little money on himself. Now, there was an incident where some people, he would sponsor people for the Hajj. He would sponsor people for the Hajj. So he would tell people to go, and he'd have a whole town of people, and they would go to Hajj with his money. And what they would do, he would gather the money of the people, and he would add his money to it. And he would spend a lot more. So on the traveling, when they're in Mecca, in Medina, then he'll say, why don't we buy gifts for people? And he'll buy the gifts for the people. And also, when he returned home, okay, because the people in the home, they would, greet the people that had come back from Hajj. He would spend the money for the people, and they would decorate their houses. He would make a huge meal for people, and he'd sponsor even the people that were inside, who hadn't gone to Hajj, so they could receive the people that had gone to Hajj. And you see, Abdullah ibn Mubarak, he realized that if you have to have taqwa, and if you want to go to jihad, and if you want to sacrifice with your life, it has to start firstly with your money. You have to show that you can sacrifice with your money and spend from your money and be detached from your money before you can make a sacrifice with your life. And that's why he didn't have any interest about his money and how much is in my bank account and see how much of money and how much I've spent. No, whatever he had, he would spend for the people. Not only this, but Abdullah ibn Mubarak was a person of trust. Some people, for example, you lend them something, you lend them a book, and you never ever see that book again. You lend them some money, okay, sometimes you see this a lot of times, maybe 100 euros, okay brother, I'll give it to you, and then 2 weeks passes, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year, and then at the end of the day, he's forgotten about it. Okay? Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, he borrowed a pen that he had while he was in Sham, while he was in Syria. Just a pen. And then he went to Iraq, and then he remembered that he owed a pen to somebody. And so he made the journey and returned all the way back to Sham just to return this pen. Just for a pen. Okay? He went all the way back. Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, very frequently, he would relate the hadith that said, most of the hypocrites of my ummah will be the scholars and the learned ones. He would keep on saying this. Most of the hypocrites of my ummah will be the scholars and the learned ones. Because he wanted to save himself from being a hypocrite. Right? So just because you've got knowledge and you've got ilm, it doesn't mean you cannot be a hypocrite. And he'd always say this hadith just to remind himself, so that he is not a hypocrite. There is Al-Fasawi. He went on jihad with Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. And it was a cold, rainy night. And then Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, he began to weep and he began to cry. And Al-Fasawi said to him, why are you crying? Why is it that you are crying? And he said that I am crying for all those nights that have passed and have not been cold and rainy. Because I wanted to get the reward for these cold and rainy nights every day. And because they haven't been cold and rainy, I'm crying. For most of us, we'd be so happy that all the days are good and fine, and only one day is cold and rainy. But for him in jihad, he wishes all the nights were cold and rainy, so that he could get more rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a story related by Hamad bin Yazid, who had a conversation. And he said to him, he met Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. And he asked Abdullah ibn Mubarak, where are you from? He said, I am in Khurasan. He said, where in Khurasan are you from? He said, I am from Marwin. And he said, have you heard of this great scholar called Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak? And he said, yes. And he was asked, how is he, what he's up to, what's he doing, how is he keeping? And then Abdullah Mubarak, he said, I am that man. So you see, Abdullah Mubarak wasn't a person showing off to the people, wearing fine robes and being a great scholar, everybody knows who I am, and making a big name for himself. He was just having an ordinary conversation with this person. Oh, do you know who Abdullah Mubarak? Have you seen him? And he was speaking really to the real Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. Sometimes you see some Muslims, they say, oh, I'm a good Muslim, they're a good Muslim thobe, I am this, I am that, and they make a big impression for themselves. Okay? But this man, he was simple, okay? But it was inside his heart that mattered most. Now, while in Mecca, for example, Abdullah ibn Mubarak, he took the Zamzam and he made the dua, because he knows the hadith, okay, that the dua, the Zamzam is for that which it is drunk. So if you drink Zamzam water and you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that dua will be answered. So what is the dua that Abdullah ibn Mubarak made when he was drinking Zamzam? Say, I want more children, I want more money, I want a better animal, what dua was he making? He said, I drink this Zamzam to quench my thirst on the Day of Judgment. I drink this Zamzam to quench my thirst on the Day of Judgment. One of the famous quotes of Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, he would say, the beginning of knowledge, if you are very serious in earning knowledge for Allah, is intention. Then listening, then understanding, and then action, and then memorizing, and then distributing it. So intention, then listening, and understanding, and then action. And then action straight away afterwards. Acting upon the knowledge that you have listened to, that you have heard, and you've understood. And then after the action, memorizing, and then telling people. So you don't tell people something that you yourself don't do. He would say, we sought the knowledge of the dunya, and it led us to shun the dunya. So we wanted to find out about the dunya and what is inside the dunya about the world. And the more we found out about the dunya, the more and more we stood away from the dunya. The more we realized that the world will take us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He would say that adab, manners, okay, is 1/3 of the deen. Manners is 1/3 of the deen. Not just about quoting verse of Quran and quoting a hadith and quoting poetry. No. Adab, manners, is 1/3 of the deen. He would said, I sought knowledge for 20 years. I sought knowledge for 20 years. And I sought adab for 30 years. Okay? Because adab is not something that you can just find in the books and you just read about. It has to be something that you learn. I sought adab for 30 years. And he would say, the Sahaba, they used to seek adab first and then knowledge. So first they'll get adab and manners, and then they will study the knowledge.